And like I said, the most important thing for me is to learning to let go. And I'm just starting that, just starting it.
It's hard.
You know, like you guys are here right now because I did that. You know, because if it was up to me, I would have just went by the email and that was it, but I threw it in his lap. Believe it or not, you know, I threw it in his lap, I said, do it. You know, I said, just don't let it cost me too much money. And I sent him a list of stuff last night. I said, who are these guys? I gave him a list of things and he came back with, I don't know. But now that I see you guys, I mean, how much could you possibly cost me? The majority of Italians growing up in the Bronx area all had grandfathers that made wine. My wife and I drove up here on a beautiful, beautiful October day from the city and fell in love with the area as well as this property. And there was an active winery on the property. Somehow a dream started at that point of, you know, what if someday kind of we can do that? So I had to scramble. Try to take 1964 technology and stomp it on the grapes and bring it up to today. So how do you do that? You go ahead and you hire quality people. How do you do that? That's the tough part. Right now, I'm very, very fortunate with some good people, a great manager, a great winemaker, and I'm always on the outside. And I'm still on the outside, just looking around. My job is to site development. And I'm just learning now to kind of leave them alone and let them do their own thing.
Welcome back. As you may know already, I'm a late bloomer when it comes to some things. And the Hudson Valley is no different, as it's always been an afterthought when it comes to quality wine growing. This region can say it has the oldest vineyard and winery in the United States, but all its history is not enough to convince the wine connoisseurs that we make good wine here.
New York is a fun place to make wine, but it's a royal pain in the ass. You gotta love it. You've got really cold winters, you've got variable summers. Along with that, you've got this bunch of grapes that you've narrowed down to what you can grow here. So they're the survivors, like Cabernet Franc or Vidal, which we grow here. These are the grapes that you have to work with and make really good wine out of, even though 20 years ago they didn't have much of a reputation. And if you told me 10 years ago that people were gonna come to this winery and ask for Cabernet Franc by name, I wouldn't have believed you. I was a big skeptic. I'm like, yeah, no one's ever gonna drink this. It's Cabernet Franc. But now we get people coming in and asking for it, and they want the pepperiness, and they like the green bell pepper aromas. I'm seeing the whole industry evolve through the years that I've worked here, and my expectations are completely different now.
The expectations others have over you is anxiety-inducing. At the age of 3, I dreamt of moving to Hollywood, living in Beverly Hills amongst the stars, and watching myself on the big screen. Never would I have thought that wine would be the thing that brought me to the West Coast. Expectations are inherent in all of us, from inside and out. We are never satisfied.
Hey, John. How's it going? Good to see you. Yeah, likewise. People's misconception of the Hudson Valley is, I think, starting to make that little turn.
We're making that turn, for sure. I do see that. Collectively, all the wineries here are trying to kind of push as the Hudson Valley grape is Cabernet Franc. The colder climate allows it to have that unique spice that you can find in it that is kind of sought after. And I find that is most similar with your Cabernet Francs from the Loire Valley in France, and those are the ones that you're looking for. We're planning more, all the other surrounding wineries are planning more, and people come in and say, oh, I'm in New York State, I'm gonna taste a Cabernet Franc. They know that that's the go-to for us.
This area was all vineyards at one time, this particular property. We started from scratch in 2008. The vineyards are difficult in the Hudson Valley. An example is this year we recorded -11 in the vineyard. -15, you lose the entire plant. So you start all over again. If you had the plants for 12 years, you start from year 1. -11, for any duration of time, you will lose buds. You'll lose this year's crop. How much, we don't know exactly. There's ways to find out. We kind of close our eyes and figure it out in the end, because I don't want to know. Not that we have a great vineyard, size-wise, but we still have our heart and soul into it.
The conditions in this environment will break your heart a million ways to Sunday. New York's growing season is roughly 30 days less than California's, making it more difficult for grapes to reach full maturity. Counter in the intemperate weather conditions growers face year to year, and you've got yourself a recipe for financial instability.
My job is to put that plant in a hole. Let's give them no water. Let's give them no fertilizer. Let them look for what they need. And the reason being is because when they get down below that frost line looking for it, at least I know I've got to plant it next year, because I want this vineyard to thrive.
I think that we have a good opportunity to teach people here, especially in the Hudson Valley, because we're right near New York City. A lot of people are coming up here, and this is their first winery experience. You know, I've had customers who came in and they got the sweetest white wine, and then slowly I got them to try a light red, and then 5 years later, they're only drinking red wine. Let's do the 2017 Rosé. So we got that right here.
Okay.
This, if I'm in the tasting room, I always say that this is the hardest wine to make. This is every single red grape fermented in a small lot separately. So we've got 2 different Cabernet Francs, we've got Syrah, 2 different Petit Verdots, we have Merlot, we have Cabernet Sauvignon, and I'm forgetting a grape in there somewhere, Malbec. This is a bone-dry rosé. This is gonna be really refreshing, lightly chilled.
Cheers.
Cheers. Interesting?
It is. It's got a great acidic backbone that gives the aromatics that nice lift.
And people are starting to understand that they're not sweet. Once again, you see that progression. For years ago, everybody thought rosé was blush wine or white Zinfandel or whatever you want, that type of wine. And now people are understanding that, you know, if you close your eyes and drank it, it almost would seem like you're drinking a dry white in some ways.
Combines the best of both worlds.
We've got 2 other regions in New York State, one of them being Long Island, the other one being the Finger Lakes. They have these microclimates and they work very well with growing grapes. So we do have the potential to source from all these areas, and that's basically what we do.
This one's called 87 North, named after the thruway, which was the owner's commute to and from the winery when we'd first opened up. So they named this one here the white 87 North. We actually have a red blend 87 South for those way back home. A blend of Vidal Blanc, which is one of the grapes we actually grow here, and then Cayuga White that we source from the Finger Lakes. This one's really just like a summer beat the heat kind of white wine.
And this is clear. I mean, look at that. There's like very little color in there. Very, very clean, just very vibrant fruit, and there's that cool acidity that I really enjoy.
This grape is called Treminette, so it is a hybrid from the Gewürztraminer. A project that was done by Cornell University. They took the Gewürztraminer, crossed it with an American varietal to create something that would get the flavor profile of a Gewürztraminer, floral and spicy characteristics, but in a vine that would survive cold winters, something to be disease resistant for the rainy season. You're gonna get some floral and spice characteristics. You definitely get that Gewürz parentage showing through. There's also fruit introduced, so it's, you know, it's its own thing. It's different than you would find a traditional Gewürztraminer.
This one is like full-on floral. There's actually a kind of like a little bit of a grassy note to it that I pick up.
Wow. So you get a little bit of a touch of honey kind of hangs out in there as well.
Honey, yeah. Wow. I detected just the tiniest hint of a little bit of residual sugar in there.
Yes.
It's dry, but there's just that little bit of sweetness on there, on the back end right there.
Yeah,
that's really, really refreshing. And the color is a little bit more golden in hue.
This is Long Island fruit. I find Syrah is not going to do too well anywhere else other than Long Island. It's a little bit of a wimpy vine. Doesn't like the cold too much. So this is an example of that lighter bodied red, low alcohol, high acidity. This is really unique because you have a very rich, savory nose, almost remnant of like cured meats, almost like bacony. So it's really interesting.
Wow. I can If I hold the glass like just this far away, you can smell the aromatics from here. It's very, very, very perfumed.
How this stuff gets from the vine into the bottle continues to astonish me.
I heard a story about this special rock that was found in the Cab Franc vineyard here.
So we are our Block 2 vineyard. We call that the Forgotten Vineyard. When we were digging up the ground, just getting it ready for the planting, there's a lot of rocks hanging out in there. And there's one in particular that was, when removed from the ground, there was a little mark on it. We were curious, we went over to it, and just in script, just the word forgotten was written on it. And it became our Forgotten Vineyard. Very interesting to think, how did it get there? So we did our little research. This property, for a long time, early 1900s, was Wallkill Camp. Some counselor, it was definitely above the skill of an attendee of the camp, had written that on the rock, and I guess it was buried in there to be forgotten. But sure enough, many years later, we bring it up, and that became a little story for our vineyard.
We're gonna take a little sample of our first vintage of Forgotten Vineyard. 3-year-old Cabernet Franc vines. We pulled a small crop off, enough to produce 3 barrels. I call it a dank red. I'm gonna pour some out so you can see how deep the color is. So, even for really, really young vines, I'm pretty happy with the quality of this red wine. Here we go.
It's like dirty clean.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
It's like leaves if you walk through the forest in the fall.
Yep.
And you kick up leaves, the rotting understory, and the hardwood trees, the acorns. It's like if you could just somehow capture that smell, that's what this wine is getting. That's the terroir here.
Cheers.
But yeah, so here's the dank Cabernet Franc.
I have a really, really interesting descriptor.
I can handle it. Hit me.
It brings me back to my childhood. I had an old Chucky mask from way back in the day. I get the smell of, I don't know if it was the silicone that it was made out of. I would say, it smells like my old Chucky mask.
Sometimes I'll lump that aroma into the department store smell. This might sound insane. But I'm like, it reminds me of like shopping for G.I. Joes, going to the department store. Maybe it's that.
Yeah,
aroma.
it could be, it's the department store.
I don't think we're gonna put that on the tasting notes, but aromas of Chucky mask, G.I. Joe.
I love it. I've got to build a new barn over there. I've got to build a pond over there that I'm doing right now. I have to build a wine cave. That's my job, and that's what I live for.
It all started with a dream, an attraction to the Italian blood of his ancestors before him. Wine growers like Harry put in a great deal of stock, faith if you will, year after year in the hopes that the vintage will be profitable. Robibero's Forgotten Vineyard is an example of the rise and fall of our expectations. The constant threat of replanting and the inconsistency of fruit quality is enough to make anyone's dreams a nightmare. But we persevere because the hope is that we realize there's no other choice but to move forward and start again. I moved to California after 30 years of living with my parents. I was consumed by the comfort that complacency tricks you into feeling. It was easy for me to put in a few hours at a cushy job, go home where a warm meal was always waiting for me, and then spend my weekends getting lost in a false sense of wanderlust. I had an incredible fear of just saying fuck it. And then I moved to California to pursue a career in winemaking. I started my life at age 30. And with that, we move on.